I got a lead on a rebel Skrull that's high up in the U.S. government. And he's in London.
St. James Church, 1 hour.
I need to speak to Gravik.
Yeah, well, you're talking to me.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Secret Invasion Episode 3 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, a whole bunch of confirmations about theories we had, who's really been a Skrull this whole time, Avengers who have been Skrulls this whole time. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them. We're also doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know who you think has been a Skrull this whole time in the MCU. Careful for spoilers on the episode. If you haven't seen it yet, we'll start at the beginning and just work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments, and those big Skrull reveals, especially at the end of the episode too. Starting with the episode title, Betrayed, which is a reference to that Avengers character. Now, because I gave the spoiler warning, Rhodey is a Skrull. He's been a Skrull for a good long while now. The question is how long he's been a Skrull. It's also meant to be a reference to Talos' daughter, Gaia, Emilia Clarke's character, betraying Gravik. He finds out that she is the traitor in the group by the end of the episode. But don't worry, she's not dead, even though he shoots her and then drives off. She's still in the rest of the season. They have big plans for her in the future of the MCU. She's going to become sort of like a version of Abigail Brand, maybe even using that name from the comics, even though she's still a Skrull, really. My theory right now is that she'll just start working with Nick Fury on his Saber space station as a version of Abigail Brand, like kind of using that moniker, but taking Maria Hill's place, whereas she was like Nick Fury's right-hand person. Now it's probably going to wind up being Emilia Clarke's character. It's kind of like what they did with Kit Harington's Black Knight character during the Eternals movie. Like, they sort of established the character, even though they have more time to do it with Emilia Clarke's character here, but they have big plans for Kit Harington's character in the future of the MCU. You could also say the title is a reference to Nick Fury's wife kind of betraying him in his absence after Avengers Endgame, because at the end of the episode, they also revealed that she'd secretly been working with Gravik's group and Skrull Rhodey, who is also on Gravik's team.
I need to speak to Gravik.
Yeah, well, you're talking to me.
To be fair to her, though, I think the idea is that she wanted to help the rest of her people like she did before she met Nick Fury, before they got together as a couple. That was what she was talking to Nick Fury about, like, I turned into the me I was before I met you. Just another Skrull that was trying to help her people survive. It just is the person that she was helping turned into a radical and wants to take over the planet, so she kind of betrayed him, so to speak, even though I think, based on the trailer footage, she'll wind up helping Nick Fury. But then the opening scene is of Gravik's new recruit, Beto, from episode 1, who just joined the group, getting ready to go out on a mission that they're trying to start this war using the submarine, the nuclear missiles, and the UN plane. And the whole idea is that the rest of his group is trying to psych him up. He's not quite sure about what's happening. I think that's meant to flow with the idea that not every single member on Gravik's group is meant to be evil. Some of them just want to help their people, and Gravik is taking advantage of them. They're the ones that impersonate those military personnel that tried to launch the missiles at the end of the episode. Then Gravik checks on their Super Skrull machine. We get a better look at it. You can actually see this room is exposed to the elements, but it's inside this larger abandoned power plant where the rest of the Skrulls have been living. The rest of the council come in to check it out, and Gravik explains his new plan to start an all-out World War III, which they reference later in the episode. He'll get the British submarine to destroy the UN plane, causing the world to slowly break out into all-out war, and the Skrulls will use that chaos to take over. But also, he tells the council about his Super Skrull plan to turn them all into Super Skrulls because he's expecting the Avengers to eventually assemble a rally against them. We'll need to become super versions of ourselves, Super Skrulls, like he literally says the word, Super Skrulls.
And we no longer just change faces. We change powers. Super Skrulls.
If you zoom in and enhance on the background of their lab here, you can see on the wall that they have a timeline of the whiteboard that shows the stages of the Super Skrull testing and how it's meant to progress. The newspaper clipping on the right that they've framed is about DNA discoveries, which is meant to represent the key to how their group of Skrulls learn how to combine the DNA of other superpowered beings with their Skrull DNA. And when he says they'll be able to change powers, that's just part of the Super Skrull's abilities in the comics and a bit of what happened during the comic book version of Secret Invasion, with them impersonating different Avengers characters and being able to impersonate their powers as well. Originally in the comics, the Super Skrull was just one character, so all the regular Skrulls couldn't impersonate other characters' powers, they could just make themselves look like other people. And originally, the Super Skrull was just a Fantastic Four character given the powers of the Fantastic Four characters, just those four. That's because he came from the Fantastic Four comics, like the Skrull Emperor at the time, Emperor Doric, created him to fight the Fantastic Four specifically. They featured him in a bunch of the animated series over the years. Whereas in the MCU, with these versions, they're getting abilities from a bunch of different characters from across the Marvel movies and Marvel Disney Plus series. So far, we've seen them with Groot, Frost Beast, Obsidian, and Extremis powers, but there could be more. Later in the episode, Gravik also reveals that he's already got Extremis powers, like he's already turned himself into a Super Skrull. Some of you probably spotted the references here too, but the way they're doing this, though, even though they're using different MCU characters, they're sort of replicating the powers of the Fantastic Four using other MCU characters. Like Groot's stretching ability that you see Gravik using is similar to Reed Richards' stretching ability. Obsidian would be kind of like the powers of the Thing being extremely strong. Extremis flame abilities would be kind of like the Human Torch's powers. Normally, I wouldn't say Frost Beast's powers are that much like Invisible Woman's powers, but they might say that Frost Beast has the ability to camouflage, so it seems like it enables the Skrulls to turn invisible when really it's just them camouflaging themselves. We'll see how that power works. We've only seen them use Groot powers and Extremis powers during the episodes so far in the trailers. But this is meant to be confirmation that Gravik plans on turning all members of their group into Super Skrulls, giving them all powers, and they'll all have all these different powers themselves. It won't just be one power for each character. They'll get all the abilities. To make more Fantastic Four references, they kind of had a version of this as an Easter egg during Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Chris Evans' Human Torch got everyone's powers briefly, but they used the power cosmic from the Silver Surfer to explain, so it was kind of a twist on the idea of the Super Skrull, but him using everyone's abilities at the same time was meant to be a Super Skrull Easter egg.
To quote a friend of mine, it's clobbering time.
Speaking of which, I literally just did a video about Chris Evans coming back as his version of Human Torch from the Fantastic Four movies in Deadpool 3. Cannot wait to see what that's going to look like.
I feel like we just got here. I feel like we never even left. I have no idea where I am in time and space.
Pretty much anybody who's ever been in a Fox Marvel movie has a pretty good chance of coming back during that, even Ben Affleck's Daredevil. But the whole idea is that with their powers as Super Skrulls, they'll just create even more chaos, causing the humans to all kill each other so they can just sort of walk in the rubble, just move in after everybody's dead. He wants to get the humans to do the busy work of killing each other off. Remember, during episode 2, he said he simply doesn't want to rule the humans, he wants to get rid of all of them just in general, because they implied in last week's episode that the Skrulls had already been ruling planet Earth in secret. They'd already taken over many of the world's nations, replacing key world leaders, key people in power, and they were just content to live in that secret invasion environment. They wanted to keep things status quo, but that wasn't enough for Gravik. He wants Skrulls to be able to walk around in broad daylight in their true forms without having to worry about it. He has a big argument with Talos about how this is going to play out. Like, if you tell the world about the Skrulls and reveal the truth, they're not going to side with the good Skrulls. Like, they won't see the difference between our two groups of Skrulls. They'll try to kill all of us no matter what. Then we get another Nick Fury flashback. We're getting a bunch of Nick Fury backstory during this episode. There were a couple conversations with a lot of exposition meant to tell you what Nick Fury was doing for all these years since the 90s. This year's to 1998, 1 year after that 97 flashback in last week's episode. We're in New York City, and he goes to see Vara, who isn't his wife yet, but it seems like they are in a relationship. Like, Vara actually wants to get together in a more serious way with him, and he's kind of reticent about it. His reason for having the meeting with her is just to check in after her recent mission, which was to Russia, and to find out what was going on with the Red Room in Dreykov. Big Black Widow movie connection. They also reveal that she just took this form, like this is brand new. They have a couple of funny moments like this when they're talking to each other, like, oh, where did you take this form? Where did you get this idea? She does have a ring on her ring finger, but I'm guessing it's not their wedding ring because the way they talk, it sounds like they haven't actually gotten married yet. So maybe it's a piece of Skrull jewelry or just something of personal significance to her. It does sound like they've been doing it on the DL between missions, but the whole idea is that Nick Fury's like, we're still part of S.H.I.E.L.D., we can't fraternize with people below our rank, and he's her commanding officer. But then they confirmed that there was no official record of the Skrull task force inside S.H.I.E.L.D. ever existing, so it's not like the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. would find out about their relationship or what they're doing together. This is also meant to sew up the continuity too, like who knew that the Skrulls were on planet Earth and when did they find out? For the most part, they want to tell you in present day that most people in most of the Avengers, not all the Avengers, but probably most of the Avengers, don't know about the Skrulls. That'll be a big point of contention, like, how could the Avengers, as powerful as they are, like as smart as some of them are, as much as they know, how could they not know about the Skrulls? So I'll explain that in a second too. I think a couple of the Avengers did know about the Skrulls. When Vara mentions Dreykov's people being on their heels, she's talking about the Black Widows. She's talking about the Black Widow program. Dreykov was the head of the Russian Red Room, ran the Black Widow program for years. They explained most of that backstory during the Black Widow movie. The Black Widow program was how he got started, and at this point in the 90s, Natasha and Yelena Belova will be a little bit older, but they'd still be pretty young girls, still having gone back to the Red Room training program in the middle of that. During the Black Widow movie, their mission to the United States with Red Guardian and Milena, where they pretended to be that family, they kind of became a surrogate family to each other, ended in 1995. So this is 1998. So it was after their mission ended, they came back to Russia, and both Natasha and Yelena went back to the Red Room. Based on Natasha's age during the Black Widow movie, she might almost have been activated. She might not quite be active at this point as Black Widow, like she might still be in the Red Room. The other thing that's going on during their conversation, too, is they want to remind you that Vara has been an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., so to speak, to make more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. references. This whole time, she has Black Widow-level skills herself as a special agent. Kind of the way that Hawkeye's wife was revealed to be an MCU version of Bobby Morse in the Hawkeye series, so for a long time, she was a regular S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and just as good a fighter as the rest of them. It's all in service of Vara being activated at the end of the episode when she pulls the gun out of the safety deposit box. Like, she'll actually get involved with a lot of the action in the rest of the episodes. We'll see if they ever wind up doing that with Hawkeye's wife. Then we see a news broadcast with Shooter McGavin's Skrull council member doing his very best J. Jonah Jameson impression on his news broadcast, trying to stoke everyone's fears so the general population, just in general, will be ready to start the war once the Skrulls set it off. Within the Secret Invasion series in the MCU, his real name is meant to be Chris Stearns. We see the real version of him at the end of the episode in one of those Skrull devices. But it's basically what you see here. He's meant to be kind of like a J. Jonah Jameson type of figure, riling everyone up in the worst possible way. Like, let me tell you about how the world is terrible. Here's the worst thing you've ever heard. Get pissed off, grab a gun, go out and shoot a whole bunch of people. The Skrulls' plan is to get everybody to kill each other off, basically. So they want people to get as pissed off as possible. In present day, they have it out together. She says it's been years since he's been back. He calls her Scylla, which is short for something. That actually made me wonder. Vara was meant to be her name in the past, so that makes you wonder if this is some other part of her name we're just learning now, or this person that we're looking at here is a completely different character than his wife in the past. Because right after this conversation, Nick Fury also asks her who she's become in his absence is both a metaphor and literal. Like, how has she changed since the snap, metaphorically, during the 5-year time jump? That's also a big thing, too. They're implying that she was not snapped. She grieved him for those 5 years, as she said, until the Hulk snap brought everyone back. And that's also probably when she started working with Talos in Gravik's group. Like, she started working with them again. It sounds like for a while she was living as Nick Fury's wife, doing the regular waifu duties. But I think they also want you to wonder if she might have used her powers during that period to turn into other people. Like, who are you physically? Who have you changed into physically since I last saw you? Then she explains after Avengers Endgame, she got really pissed off when Nick Fury took off to his space station. Like, you just took off again, so what was I to do? Then she started to become more active, doing the same type of things she did before she actually got together with Nick Fury. Like, she was just helping out her people in general. That's when she became more active with Gravik's group. Then because of the big twist with Skrull Rhodey at the end of the episode, I think we can say that the mystery phone call that she gets while they're having that conversation is Skrull Rhodey. Nick Fury also looks at the phone like he tried to check out who she called, so I think that he's going to figure out about Skrull Rhodey pretty soon too, because of something he says later in the episode too, which confirms a lot of our theories about Skrull Rhodey.
Nobody calls me Nick, Bob.
That's what this moment right here, right now is about, Nick.
Nobody calls him Nick, and Rhodey called him Nick. So I think the idea is that he already knows that Rhodey is a Skrull. Literally later in the episode, he tells Talos that there's a high-ranking member inside the U.S. government who is a Skrull. I think he's talking about Rhodey. Love his joke about retiring and then taking up revenge as a hobby with all his new free time. Like, I think I'll take up revenge. Obviously talking about stopping Gravik's group, taking revenge on those Skrulls. This whole conversation Gravik has, rousting Emilia Clarke's Gaia character, is because of what happened last night with the Skrull that they had to kill. He's already suspecting her, as he does at the end of the episode too. So if it wasn't clear, one of his side goals in this whole strike against the UN was to also try and suss out the traitor, who he probably suspected might be her, but just wasn't sure about it till the end of the episode. Like, he still wanted to start a war, like he wanted the missile strike on the UN plane to go off, but he also wanted to use the mission to find the traitor. So that's why at the end of the episode, he says their mission was still successful because he did find out who the traitor was, even though they stopped the missiles. Gravik and Talos have their parlay meeting inside the British Museum around a bunch of paintings of important figures from history, particularly talking about the painting of statesmen from World War I that Gravik uses as a metaphor for their two different kinds of Skrulls, like the soldiers and the bureaucrats, which he's talking about the council that he basically just took over recently. He uses the painting as a metaphor for his group of Skrulls, which he views like the soldiers. We're doing the actual work of trying to save our people, and you bureaucrat Skrulls haven't done anything the past 30 years. It's another callback to Nick Fury and Captain Marvel's broken promise, like saying that Talos has done nothing about them breaking their promise, like you were just going to let things continue the way that they were. They give us a little more backstory on Skrulls culture just in general. Like, we're using this series to learn a lot more about what happens inside the Skrulls culture when they reference an honor meeting, which is like their version of a duel to the death. Like a formal challenge that different Skrulls can have with each other, throwing the gauntlet down. Gravik reveals that he's replaced all the people in the museum with his group of Skrulls so that Talos can't outright kill him. When he warns Gravik about humans being at their most formidable when they're threatened, Talos is talking about Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, with the Avengers battling Thanos. Talking about the way the Avengers rallied in Avengers Endgame after they lost almost everything to the snap and then came back to destroy Thanos. Trying to say that something similar will wind up happening in an all-out war with the Skrulls in this comic book version of Secret Invasion. Like, if you full-on come for them, eventually, even though you might kill a bunch of them, they will, right? Like, the new Avengers will come and kill all of our race. Talos doesn't want to see the extinction of his entire race, which is why he says that he's going to reveal to the world what's really happening with the Skrulls. But Gravik is the pessimist, and he's saying, like, no. They won't see the difference between good Skrulls and bad Skrulls. They'll just see that all Skrulls are evil and try to kill our entire race no matter what. Some of this dialogue, I think, is also meant to head off some of the logic questions that fans will have as they're watching the series. Like, why don't the Avengers come to help? They explain that in episode 2, because the Skrulls would just replace them and turn them all into fugitives. This is also meant to explain why Gravik can't just go out and tell everybody what's really going on, because nobody will believe him. They'll just see a Skrull and think that the entire planet is threatened and try to kill every single Skrull they can get their hands on. The trick of him pulling his hand from the knife, then healing the wound, is also a big John Wick move that they borrowed from the recent movies, and him healing the damage is meant to show you, like I said, that he's already got Extremis powers, like he's already turned himself into a super Skrull. The interesting thing, though, you notice, is that it still hurts him, like the act still hurts him to cut his hand like that, even though it heals it super fast. Extremis doesn't erase the sensation of pain, it just gives him a Wolverine and Deadpool-like healing factor. It works the same way with Wolverine and Deadpool, too. Both of them still feel pain like a normal person would when they're wounded. Wolverine, for instance, has to mess his hand up really bad every time he pops his claws. Like, the way his claws exist next to his forearm here, they basically have to push their way through his bones. Like, they have to dislocate all of his bones and then pierce his skin. So every time he retracts his claws, his bones heal, the wounds heal. But it's like every time he wants to pop his claws, it's like someone stabs him over and over. He just doesn't show it on his face because he's done it so many times. There were a couple of jokes like this during the Deadpool movies too, where he's like, I'm in incredible pain right now, but he heals so fast that he tries to turn it into a joke. Like, he hides his pain with jokes. You notice Talos bumping into the man next to him on his way out of the meeting, passing the cell phone, because it was one of his good Skrulls helping him. Like, they were bumping each other with the cell phone so they could pass information. Then you notice when Talos is getting English breakfast, it's meant to be similar to what Nick Fury cooked for his wife. Like I said earlier, when he mentions the person high up in the US government that's a Skrull, he's probably talking about Rhodey because of the big reveal at the end of the episode. Then he asks Sonya Fallsworth to use her MI6 agents to help out with Gravik's pending attack, and she says that she's discovered his listening device, renames her owl Nick Fury, covering the eye of the tracking device that he put out with an eye patch like his. The internal infiltration that she's referencing has a picture of Tony Curran here. It seems like one of the agents she suspects might be a Skrull, but this makes 3 different characters that Tony Curran has played in the MCU, which I think is a new record. There are a lot of people that have played 2 different Marvel characters, but I think he's one of the first to actually do 3 different characters. Before this, he was also Thor's grandfather, Bor. We saw him in the flashback fighting the Dark Elves in Thor the Dark World. He was king of Asgard before he passed the throne to his son Odin. Then he played Finn Cooley during the Daredevil Netflix episodes when they were on Netflix. He was just a regular human mobster. Talos and Nick Fury have a big argument in their car ride that they use for a lot of exposition to give you more backstory on Nick Fury's character, but Talos has that funny joke about not understanding why humans keep dogs as pets, but they mostly use that for setup for Nick Fury's punchline, saying that he's been cleaning up Skrull messes that Talos has been making for the past 30 years. The messes he's talking about is covering up the evidence that the Skrulls exist for the past 30 years while he's been using them as his secret agents inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Like I said, they want to tell you during this series that for the most part, most people on planet Earth did not know about the Skrulls, but I think a couple Avengers did figure it out over time. Like Black Widow probably figured out about the Skrulls. Iron Man is another character who just has access to so much information. His AI, like Friday as well as Jarvis, so powerful that he would have had to have figured out about the Skrulls at some point. Even Steve Rogers, Captain America, probably eventually learned about the Skrulls, like he knew about what happened with Iron Man's father. Speaking of which, I also think that old man Steve Rogers retired, quote-unquote, onto the Saber space station where a lot of the Skrulls are working, so if he didn't know everything about the Skrulls before, he definitely knows now. Then we get a bunch of new Nick Fury backstory where Talos basically says that before the events of the Captain Marvel movie when the Skrulls arrived in 1995, Nick Fury was just a desk jockey, nobody of note, and had the Skrulls not shown up, like had things not gone down the way they did in the Captain Marvel movie and started working with Nick Fury, he would still have stayed behind that desk, being no one of note. Like when Hydra eventually tried to take over during the Captain America Winter Soldier movie, Nick Fury would not have been able to stop them because he would have been completely unremarkable. Talos claims that it was his secret group of Skrull operatives working for Nick Fury in the 90s that made him so successful inside S.H.I.E.L.D. and helped him climb the ranks of the organization. He did it on the backs of Skrulls. When he says that they gave him all the dirt that he used as leverage against assets, that's also a bit of a callback to the Marvel movies like Iron Man 1, the post-credit scene, Iron Man 2, also post-credit scene in that movie, where you see all the intel that he's talking to Iron Man about as he's putting the Avengers together. The Skrulls collected all that information for him. For example, what's really going on with Wakanda here? Like that was a huge Easter egg in the early Iron Man movies. It sounds like the Skrulls were able to infiltrate Wakanda and get information about that. But they're also trying to use their argument. Talos is trying to tell Nick Fury that his life has changed for the better with the Skrulls in it. And it's all about Talos' argument for coexistence. Like he wants humans to be able to coexist with Skrulls. That's also the reason why Talos says he didn't accept Gravik's offer of partnership before, because he believes in coexistence. When they break into the British Commodore's house and they have the standoff with the boy and the Skrull who's captured Talos, this is huge, confirms Big Rhodey's Skrull theory. Nick Fury says no one calls him Nick, and in episode 2, Rhodey called him Nick, which I think if people were on the fence at the end of this episode is meant to be confirmation that he really is secretly a Skrull. Now I'm sure there'll be more evidence and clues as we get into further episodes, and like next week's episode we'll get into this a little bit deeper too. But the real question is when Rhodey was replaced by a Skrull and how long it's been. Like, since he's been undetected, I think the idea is that he's been a Skrull for a long time. They say the longer that Skrulls have held their forms, the harder they are to detect. So if the Avengers, like if Vision, the other Avengers, didn't detect that he was a Skrull, it's probably been for a long time. If it wasn't clear, though, the little kid wasn't a Skrull, but the Skrull that Gravik had impersonating the Commodore isn't a total dirtbag and didn't want the kid to die as collateral damage. So the idea is that not all of Gravik's Skrulls are totally evil, that Talos is trying to win him back to his side, unsuccessfully, though. Then he has his daughter, Emilia Clarke's character, pull the code word from the real Commodore's memories. Remember, they can do that. Skrulls can pull memories, absorb memories from people. She reveals herself as the traitor when she takes out the guards and they detect the phone call. You notice when she enters this room, though, she passes the real Chris Stearns, and this is the real British Prime Minister. Finding the code word in the British Commodore's memories seems like rewinding a massive VCR tape, too. Like, they had a joke about this during the Captain Marvel movie. It's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. Imagine a giant hard drive that you just have to slowly scroll back through one scene at a time. And the code word wound up being Zachary, which was the Commodore's son's name. Then even though it seems like Gravik kills Emilia Clarke, like he shoots her, she's still alive. Like she just changed into her Skrull form. This is the first time that we've seen her in her adult Skrull form too. Don't worry, she's not dead. She's featured in a lot of trailer footage from later episodes. And they finally make the Rhodey Skrull reveal, calling Nick Fury's wife, activating her as an asset, so to speak, revealing that she's been working with Gravik's group, pulling a gun from a safety deposit box. It's meant to be a parallel for Nick Fury doing the same thing with his trademark eye patch, the gun that's in his tomb. But this is just meant to confirm a lot of our suspicions. Like, Rhodey's been a Skrull. Big question, though. Let me know in the comments, how long do you think that he's been a Skrull? Next week's episode is probably mostly dedicated to explaining more about what's really going on with Skrull Rhodey and how Nick Fury's wife gets involved and eventually starts helping Nick Fury and Talos, because in all the trailer footage, it seems like she's fighting with Gaia, so it would confirm that she's on Nick Fury's side. And, obviously, that Gaia is not dead. But if it wasn't clear, the implication in this episode, based on all their conversations and the big twist, is that she's been working with Gravik's group since Avengers Endgame behind Nick Fury's back while he was on the Saber space station. If you spotted any other Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My episode 4 trailer video will post Thursday, and my full episode 4 video will post next week after they release it. There was supposed to be an Ahsoka trailer this past week, but Twitter got really crazy, like Elon Musk was doing crazy stuff on Twitter. As soon as they release that new Ahsoka trailer, I'll do a video for it. The Ahsoka episodes will be like the next big thing that'll start in August, and I'll be doing videos for those every week too, just like the Mandalorian episodes. Everyone click here for my episode 4 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my Secret Invasion videos. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.